Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, it's a real pleasure to be here and to follow that talk. Thank you so much. I'm going to pick up on the thread you said. How can we move into asking these, thinking about investee activism and, as you were saying, asking for a counter-speculation and this kind of looking at the risk that you want to see in the world and what can we do. So I'm moving from, we went to this like 600-year history, and this will be more about what can we do this week, this year. So it's very practical. And also, when we're thinking about lore, I want to mention that I'm coming from the United States, New York City. So forgive the excessive enthusiasm that we're known for. This is part of the lore and the worlding that comes from whatever America might be. Okay, nice. I like that we had to use each other's passwords in order to be here. Okay, so with that caveat, I like to keep time. I'll try and stay to around 20 minutes so we can have a good Q&A, and that might mean skipping some things. So here we go. We're going to talk about art and systems, and then how art and money is related to the solidarity economy movement, and how Open Collective is not a bank. And to begin, I will invite you to look into this blue square and notice how you're arriving in your body. We are here together. Notice who makes your presence here possible. Sense them. It could be a collective avatar. And let that residue be a reminder throughout this talk of your physical body, that you are here and that other beings are making your presence here possible. To begin, I'd like to bring a friend and artist, Clara Takarabe, into the space. And she says, I have asked, as you have probably asked, is there a place in this world for me? Today, I would reframe that question as, is this the world we deserve? Is this the world we deserve? So again, American lore, I'll begin with the why me? My dad never wanted me to be an artist. He said, how are you going to take care of me when I'm old? And I don't know where you all are coming from, but for me, this is a very core part of how I got into arts activism and arts advocacy. It comes from this very specific context in the United States that, and also probably for many of you here, that we are told we cannot survive in the creative lives that we want to be in. If we want to sing and feel and taste and move our way through the world, there is no way to pay the rent or survive or take care of our elders. And for me, this was an impossible reality to move through, and it has driven me to find a way out of no way, to trouble this narrative, this lore, and to join in a kind of maybe collective avatar, as Gary was mentioning. And part of that avatar, that collective body that helped me find a world that valued me and gave me hope, was in the arts and in collective spaces. And you might see some people here that you know, like my friend Christine Wang and Cassie Thornton. We used to live together, and this is how I survived and found an emotional and social and intellectual home or world. That was around 2008 in New York City. And from there, I got involved in many barter clubs, ways of trading. I helped start these different networks around the last financial crisis, TradeSchool and Art.Goods. And I became interested in how this is connected to this whole world of solidarity, community, and livelihood over wages, including community currencies and investment cooperatives. And I'll say these very briefly, but we can talk about them in the Q&A if you're interested. And it was exciting for me. One day I saw on someone's refrigerator a map that looked like this. So speaking of lore, I think I was in, I want to say I was in Baltimore, but I'm not even sure. And I slept over someone's house and I woke up and I saw a version of this by Ethan Miller on their refrigerator. And all of a sudden I realized these are all of the practices that I'm involved in, and there's a name for it. And I should explore all the ones that I don't know, and all of the ones that maybe could be part of the worlds or the lore that I want to participate in. That included community land trusts and finance, which could connect back to Gary's talk. And I learned that the solidarity economy is a term used to describe sustainable and equitable community control of work, food, housing, and culture using a variety of organizational forms. And maybe more importantly, it's about practice. It's about ways of being together. So sure, we can say this is a relatively contemporary term. It emerged in Chile and France in the 1980s. It gained popularity in Latin America in the 1990s. And it spread globally as an interdependent movement after the first annual World Social Forum in Brazil in 2001, where many of you probably know this term that became popularized, another world is possible. So it's now recognized internationally as a way to value people over the planet. People and the planet over profits. Hello. And to unite grassroots practices like lending circles and all of these things here. And for people who are not that excited by terms, and I understand you, I'm a visual artist, you might say, well, okay, it's all these things: economic democracy, helping each other, mutual aid, beloved community, new economy, democratic socialism, dual power, community wealth, just transition, self-determination, the commons, local community economic development. The reason we're using this term in the Art.Coop and Open Collective world is that internationally it's a way to gain power together. There are actually paid training programs, there are zero-interest loans, and there are policy platforms that use that term internationally. And so to connect to the grassroots organizing with that term and also the specific wins that have happened in many countries is important for us. But in the end, it's about, mutual aid, helping each other. And to be even more specific, it's about community ownership and democratic governance for political, cultural, and economic power. In other words, who owns and who decides. So the principles that are important to raise up are around cooperation, participatory democracy, intersectional equity, sustainability, and pluralism. And I'll let that sink in with you. An introduction, the why me, the how you're feeling in your body, who makes your presence here possible. And the residue. And so at some point around the beginning of the pandemic, I got to work with Nati Linares from the New Economy Coalition, and we got to speak to over 100 people in the United States working in the solidarity economy movement, and also arts and culture funders. So we synthesized a lot of these interviews and wrote a report, and I'm going to give you a quick overview of what we learned and what we're starting to build together with many other people at this moment. So Why does this matter? What's happening in this moment? As we know, no one knows what arts and culture will look like after the pandemic. 63% of creatives have become fully unemployed. A third of museums say they're likely to close forever. Black and Indigenous people have a COVID-19 death rate of double or more the death rate of white people in the United States. And yet foundation giving in 2020 documented that only 5% of pandemic response dollars were intended for communities of color. Only 5%. Around 0.5% of annual foundation giving directly supports women and girls of color, and less than 0.5% goes to Native Americans. Less than 0.5%. So, as Jessica Norwood says, this is adapted with permission. What would the cultural economy be like if the economy loved Black and Indigenous people? And this is how Art.Coop began. Learning from artists and culture bearers who have been most harmed by our current systems of neoliberal governance and racial capitalism, who are practicing self-determination and community wealth. And that is still this moment. So we like to give a pop quiz to bring some hope and also history and lore into the room. We say, what do these organizations and movements have in common? The oldest Native cooperative, the first democratically managed investment fund, the oldest non-extractive venture capital firm, an organization that gives 35,000 freelancers pensions today, and Black Lives Matter. And because we're here with actual people, I would love to hear what you think. What do these organizations and movements have in common? Shout out anything at all that comes to mind. Founded by women, almost all. Other ideas? Socialism might be a key part of it, could be. Not afraid to talk about money. Yeah, what else? They actually exist, yes, also. I love that in this space of researchers and conceptual artists. Yes, they exist. They were all co-founded by artists and culture bearers. So if you have any history like me and someone in your family is like, what are you doing? What does it mean to be an artist? You're never gonna have a livelihood. You're never gonna be able to take care of me. You can say, actually, artists are leading systems change. Yes, we represent the world and we allow you to imagine and enact futures. And we can show you that there's a long history, especially of working class and queer and BIPOC artists leading systems change. So if you want to look up those groups that actually exist, there's Kuala Arts and Crafts, the oldest Native co-op, the Boston Ujima Project, which is the first democratic investment fund in the US, the Working World, the oldest non-extractive venture capital firm where you don't pay back the loan if your business fails. You don't pay back the loan if your business fails. And Smart.coop, which many of you are probably familiar with here, giving freelancers pensions, and Patrice Cullors, artist, co-founder of Black Lives Matter. So this is good advocacy tooling for you all. Also, this is freely available if you all want it. We can give you the slideshow. And yeah, this is some of those groups from before. So we started our momentum in the end of 2020, and now in 2022, we are really establishing this network where we exist to grow this movement of solidarity economy, centering systems change work led by artists and culture bearers. Because often in the solidarity economy movement, let's say in cooperatives, time banks, mutual aid, there are many artists, but they aren't necessarily wearing that hat or seen in that way. And in arts and culture, there's a real interest in cooperatives and time banks, in these kind of enterprises, but people don't know how to connect with organizers that have been doing this for a long time outside of arts and culture. So we see our job as connecting these two worlds. And again, because we should own and we should decide so that we have political, cultural, and economic power. And if you're interested, the report ended up being almost 200 pages. You can download it at Art.Coop and learn about what we're doing now. This is what the first page looks like. It was a very quick 4-month report and a real incredible experience for Nati and me to fuse our energy and then bring in Shruti and Marina and the people who we get to work with today. So this will transition into Open Collective because this is a really amazing kind of coincidence in a way. Alana Irving downloaded the report and said, this strikes me as exactly what we want to do. I co-founded Lumio, which is a worker co-op that's related to decision making, and we are growing with so much mutual aid groups, and we want to talk to you about the report. And for me, it was exciting because I'm coming from the arts, and I've done things like publish my timeline of material conditions, like how much rent I paid, what I made each year for the last over a decade of my life. That's the book that's in the back if people want it for free. There's 6 copies, you can have them for free. So I put this already out there in the world. And another book, Making and Being, that I made with my friend Susan Jahoda about collective pedagogy, we also put the whole budget in there. So when Alana approached me and said, I want to talk to you about Open Collective, and I found out it was about transparent budgets, I was like, this is perfect. I'm also a Capricorn. I love talking about money. So here we go. And then I started giving different consulting, like little hours here and there, learning about Open Collective. Nati didn't want to do it because honestly, she's busy with the New Economy Coalition and is skeptical of tech, which I completely understand. And we both have little kids, so we were like, okay, Nati's going to keep doing New Economy Coalition, and I'll learn about Open Collective. And then let's feel where we are. I'm going to get into that last piece, and then we can talk. So what excites me is that Open Collective is not a bank. You might know it if you've ever raised money or donated money, but it truly is a wild world, and I'm in the beginning process of working with the lore that exists and finding my way into the world-building potential of this huge network. So I'm going to try to explain it to you. This is a complete draft. And actually, it's also now my job to learn how to explain it. So also, I want to say in terms of lore, forgive any vector graphics that make you think about startups or a kind of scale that is totally impersonal. You know, vector can scale at any size or shape, which feels less human. Maybe we should have something with the mark of an eyelash or a finger. You know, forgive the vector. This is coming from tech, but it's much more than that. So we say, how might funding today be efficient, mission-driven, and participatory? And this, again, it can look very corporate, this presentation, but I want you to know that actually there's no bullshit in here. And that's what I want to get to. And it's an aesthetic thing, like maybe I should be making hand drawings in this space that's more conceptual art, research-based. But I'm not in the depths of this culture building lore yet to tailor it to different spaces. So I'm just giving you our raw, one size fits all but doesn't fit deck. And you have to forgive it and believe me and talk to me afterwards. So yeah, how can funding be efficient, mission-driven, and participatory? We truly are building these worlds. We're bringing in tech. We're bringing in people who actually study nonprofit law. And it is actually led by grassroots organizers who are in the mutual aid and time banking and solidarity economy movement. So yes, it's these different worlds. What's amazing is that, yeah, this is like us in process trying to figure out how to explain this. You might know Pia Mancini from Democracy Earth or Alana Irving from Co-Budget and Lumio and Inspiral. Co-Budget is participatory budgeting software where you all vote on how the money is spent. Lumio is decision-making software, and Inspiral is a network of cooperatives in New Zealand. And you might know Mike Strode, who comes from the Kolanut Collaborative Time Bank, on the board of the New Economy Coalition. And these are the people I get to work with every single day. So if you know anything about what they've done in their past and the wisdom and accountability and community that they're bringing, it's a really powerful team that is not what you think of a typical startup. So we made what looks like a normal tool for raising money, for budgeting, and to this we add fiscal sponsorship, which means you have access to nonprofit status. And this matters because if any of you have ever tried to make a nonprofit, you know that you might have to wait a year and pay $10,000 to $20,000 to make a nonprofit. And this is completely ridiculous because you can start a business within a week for $1,000. So there's a reason that there's difficulty in making a nonprofit, and we can get into that in the Q&A. So yeah, what we do is we're a financial and legal home for many groups like Bushwick Ayuda Mutua. And this is within one group, the foundation. Here are some of the groups that are using the transparent budgeting crowdfunding software. And what I want to call attention to is that these people get to meet each other. So for example, the 1K project, giving $1,000 to families in the Ukraine, they raised $5.5 million in 5 months. These people are also meeting Bushwick Ayuda Mutua in Brooklyn, New York, raising $500,000 Neighbors for Neighbors. And also meeting Open Mind. This is a really amazing, truly private Web3 project with Andrew Trask. And it's unusual to have these different groups actually learning together and being together because we have learning programs on the platform. So yeah, on a technical level, we're helping you make your budget transparent, raise money, and get access to nonprofit status, doing all the back-end admin that many of you don't want to do. So I don't know if you all love doing your taxes. Maybe you have like a Virgo friend who loves all the filing and folder systems and paperwork. But if not, personally, I don't like this operational side. They do this for us. So that's part of what Open Collective is doing. We say we do the paperwork so you can focus on your mission, and then you can choose around the world which nonprofit or co-op or other legal entity you want to have hold the money transparently for you so that you don't need to apply to become a charity or a co-op or whatever entity you want. We have many entities around the world. And then here's a very ugly drawing of us trying to figure it out to show you all the different legal entities around the world that would hold money for you transparently with their bank account and then do the paperwork for you. So the most exciting part for me is that it does have this wisdom and energy actually from the startup world that they were able to get investment and not have the investors own the platform, so that it's a startup now worth $9 million, but it's about to be owned and governed by all of the users. And we're 7 years old now. We spent down the $3 million that was invested by paying people for their time. And now we have a business model so we can actually be collectively owned and governed and actually pay people to learn together about how to do this over the next 7 years. And of course, it's connecting open source and mutual aid communities. So why does this matter? As the Center for Economic Democracy puts it, the people closest to the pain must be closest to the solutions, and connecting these different groups makes a lot possible. To put it really simply, if you didn't understand what I was saying about what Open Collective does, it combines crowdfunding and tax reporting. So no one else does that. All of these things that seem at odds are combined on one tech platform. And then I'll just show you the business model so you understand how it works. Each of those nonprofits or legal entities chooses what amount of money they need in order to pay the accountants that do your paperwork for you. For example, at Open Collective Foundation, it's 8%. So that means you raise $1,000, $40 goes to the accountants, $40 goes to the engineers, you keep $920. And overall, it makes an ecosystem where donations are going through, different legal entities are taking those donations, they go to the collectives transparently, and in turn, the projects are made with a fee that goes to sustain the tech platform, and it's transparent and hopefully allows many projects to grow. So we can go into this if you're interested, but I want to close with this, like, why am I in this space? As an artist, as someone who had a lot of speculative projects, why at this moment am I interested in this kind of world? I love that it begins with a very simple tool, that is technology for fundraising and accounting, and then that you get access to nonprofit status, so you don't need to wait a year to do something. And then this next level, that you realize you need to talk about money and class with transparent budgets, where you can see my salary, where you can see all of the money coming in and out. I think this is a key to building trust and actually having conversations about capitalism. And then that we do learning and leadership development, that we're now paying people to learn together to govern the platform and get toward an exit that will take around 7 years. And this is the beginning of our Solidarity School. I can get into it if you're interested, but yeah, again, this is the reality of the Google Doc draft, moving into political education from, where are we to where do we go? And then that it's an international network, so I can be connected to groups in New Zealand, I can be connected to groups all around that are having very different realities, but a shared goal around transparency and money. And that it's community-led, so people suggest features, and that's how we build what we build on the platform. And that there are actually no bosses, so we use what's called a teal organization structure. I can get into it if you want. But truly, you can suggest something as a part of the team and then lead it end to end with feedback from the people that are most impacted. And if you don't take their feedback, you need to say why. And there's a lot of trust and a lot of conversation about this. But it is a truly, it's amazing that we can both be quick and make decisions and have a sense of clarity and group accountability. And I have never experienced that before in collectives, where there's a real desire to talk everything through before experimenting. And Alana Irving is bringing a lot of that from Inspiral and Lumio and Co-Budget, and this is also why I'm there. And then another ugly diagram in process, but this is how we work. There are many different teams, also coming from different areas of expertise, and I can get into this if you're interested. We had no visuals about any of this a year ago, so I'm beginning to get some visuals for us because I don't operate other ways. I'm a visual learner. Yeah, and then it will be owned by the people who use it. So for me, this is really radical. Most platform co-ops don't actually have a successful business plan. They want to be sharing revenue, but there is no revenue yet. We actually have revenue. And we have now made it through the startup phase, so we're 7 years in, and we can say, okay, now what does it mean to govern this together? So feel how you're feeling. And thank you so much. I'm excited to talk.